Australia has an interesting history, from first being called New Holland to then being home to lots of criminals who were sent there as punishment. It might have been a scary place to go back then, but things have certainly changed. Let's look at some interesting facts about Australia. The first people to live in Australia were the Aborigines, and they've been there for approximately 60,000 years. That is a seriously long time. If you're 10, it seems like you've been around for ages, surely. Now multiply that by 6,000, and that's how long the Aborigines have been there. Wow. Next came the Torres Strait Islanders, who've been there for about 10,000 years. Did you know that Australia was first called New Holland? Well, that was because Dutch explorers landed on the fine Aussie shores in 1606. So therefore, New Holland became its name, as this was now their second home. Then, the British arrived in 1788 and set up the first ever colony. Amazingly, the British sent criminals to Australia as punishment many, many years ago, and this little bit of history still lives with Australia today. The name Australia was given to the country in 1824. It comes from the word Terra Australis Incognita. That just means unknown southern island. In 1851, coal miners unearthed a very precious metal. Can you guess what it is? It would make you very rich. Well, it was gold. Kalgoorlie is a really small, remote town in Western Australia, and just that little town alone is one of the world's largest producers of gold. Now that's amazing. Australia is a land with a truly fascinating geography. If you find this subject boring, trust me, you won't anymore. Listen in for some supercharged facts about the deserts, rivers, and forests of this huge country, and lots more besides. Australia is the only country in the world that covers an entire continent, but amazingly, it's also an island continent. Fancy that! Certainly the largest island in the world. It is rather large, at 4,779,602 square miles, or about 7,692,024 kilometers squared. If you had to fly from Perth to Brisbane, it would take about 5 hours. That makes it 22 times bigger than the United Kingdom. Wow. More than 22 million people live in Australia, which actually isn't that many when you consider its size. More than 2/3 of the country is desert, called the Outback. There must be a serious amount of sand there. Even though there's heaps and heaps of desert, there's an abundance of rainforests here too. You know, I bet you were thinking Australia is just a hot country. Well, it's not. It's a land of extreme opposites. The highest temperature ever reached was 103 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 50.7 degrees Celsius, and the lowest temperature was -73 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that's something interesting. The country's coastline is 22,292 miles long, or about 35,877 kilometers, and they have over 10,000 beaches. Their coastlines span 3 oceans, which covers about 7,456,454 square miles, or about 12 million kilometers squared. That's just humongous. 91% of Australia is covered in vegetation. That's 7 million square kilometers. It might be easier to get rocket launchers on your feet instead of walking. The Great Dividing Range is a 2,300 mile, or 3,700 kilometers, long stretch of mountains and sends water to the most important rivers and the Great Artesian Basin. This is the largest groundwater source in the world. Canberra was chosen as the capital, And that's because Sydney and Melbourne couldn't stop arguing about which one should be the capital. See, it doesn't pay to argue. The highest mountain in Australia is Mount Kosciuszko, which is 7,310 feet high, or about 2,228 meters. The average 8-year-old is about 5 foot tall, so it would take about 1,500 kids standing on each other's shoulders to be as tall as that mountain. Best you start making lots of friends to help you. Uluru is the largest lone standing rock in the world. It pops out of the desert like a massive big red rock. It's very massive. Western Australia is a state of Australia, and it is 1,643,908 square miles, or about 2,645,615 kilometers squared. Just to give you an idea of how big that is, England would fit into the state over 20 times, Germany over 7 times, and France around 4 times. That's just one state. Now, best you sit down for this fact. It snows in Australia. Yes, it really does. In winter, they can get more snow than Switzerland. Australia is really remote. That's why it's nicknamed Down Under. And because of this, they've got loads of animals and plants that can't be found anywhere else in the world. Pretty cool, huh? So, if you want to see a kangaroo, platypus, echidna, kookaburra, or even a koala, then you'll have to hop on a plane. Love them or hate them, Australia has over 750 different species of reptiles, more than any other country in the world. Creepy fact, Australia is home to some of the deadliest animals on the planet. If you do go there, be prepared. There are 36 species of poisonous funnel web spiders and 20 types of venomous snakes. There are only about 25 venomous snakes in the world, and Australia has 20 of them. No other country can top that, so watch your step. Unbelievable, but true. This is the only place in the world where you can still find the lungfish. It is a living fossil from the Triassic period 350 million years ago. Now that's something to boast about. Have you heard of the Great Barrier Reef? Well, it's the biggest coral reef in the world. There are more than 3,000 reefs that form part of it, and there are more than 1,500 species of fish. It would be good to take a dive down under there. Beware those great big crocodiles with their huge teeth. The tropical northern Australia is home to the world's largest species of saltwater crocodiles. They can grow as big as 22 feet or 6.7 meters. Don't go walking there alone. Even though this is a big country, it doesn't have all that many people living there. There are about 3 people per square mile. Now, let's compare that to other countries to give you an idea. America has 32.3, the UK has 262, Germany 226, and France has 118 people per square mile. Unbelievable. Today, Aborigines live in the desert areas of the Australian outback, and they've learned to survive under those harsh desert conditions. Can you imagine? It's hot, hardly any water, and there's a whole heap of sand. Nearly a quarter of all the people that live there are born in other countries. Aussie people love the sea, and more than 80% of them live within 100 kilometers of the coast. That means more people live near the coast than in any other country in the world. Cool beach trips. Can you believe that over 200 different languages and dialects are spoken in Australia, of which 45 are indigenous? That's a whole lot of languages. Imagine trying to learn to speak all of them. Australia is home to the largest Greek population in the world, besides Athens in Greece. They live in Melbourne, Victoria. Australia is a commonwealth of the United Kingdom, which just means that the head of the state is none other than the Queen of England. Loads of Australians think that these ties should be cut, and they should be a country to call their very own. A vote in 1999 decided against this separation, but the debate still goes on fiercely. The Australian flag has 3 sections: the Commonwealth Star, the Southern Cross, and the Union Jack. The outback is huge and very remote, with people living hundreds of miles away from each other. So how do kids go to school? Well, they don't actually go to school. They learn via a radio, and soon technology will help them too. Imagine listening to a radio each day to learn all that you need to know. Ever heard of a cattle station that's bigger than a country? Well, Australia has the largest cattle station in the world at 21,126 square miles, or about 34,000 kilometers squared. That's even bigger than Belgium. Wow, that is one big cattle ranch. Have you ever heard the term pome? Well, this is what Australians call English people, and it means prisoners of Mother England. Ugg boots were actually invented in Australia, but they are not too keen on them. The locals actually have a very affectionate name for them: very ugly boots. Who would have thought that the Australians are great inventors? They've invented loads of things, including lawnmowers with engines, the black box on airplanes, smoke alarms, aspirin, the pacemaker, penicillin, the wine cask, electric drills, car radio, the bionic ear, and long-wearing contact lenses. They've even got the technology to produce banknotes that are the hardest to produce in the world. They're quite smart down under. This is super awesome. Melbourne used to be called Batmania. Maybe Batman lived there for a while? Well, actually, it was named after the founder, John Batman. A pretty cool name to have. Another awesome fact, they seem to have super speedy dragonflies. One dragonfly was caught flying at a record of 36 miles per hour, or about 57 kilometers per hour. For an insect, that is seriously fast. Maybe he was flying away from a snapping croc. Did you know that there's someone who actually measures fences? Well, apparently they do. The longest fence runs through Australia. It's called the Dingo Fence, and is 3,436 miles long, or about 5,531 kilometers. Bet your friends won't know that. Well, Australia certainly is an interesting country with loads of stories to tell. Share these facts with your friends, and you'll certainly be sure to wow them. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting and cool facts in the future.